from a marketing perspective to bring you new business, because the whole reason why we do this is so that we can be found online and so that our online presence is one that attracts clients to us. And there are things that we can do to nurture people and get them to come to us. So we'll talk about that in more depth. So my background is that, yes, I am associated with the SBDC, and I own a business called WSI Marketing Edge, which is a marketing consultancy based in northern New Jersey. I'm in Wayne, New Jersey. My background is that I spent almost 30 years doing marketing for large companies, Fortune 500 companies, and I really enjoyed that career. One of the benefits is that I got a chance to have experience at all levels of marketing and management, and also to really understand how the marketing mix can be used to move a market, move a client, move a customer, and the importance of analytics and tracking. And so when I left that, one of the things that attracted me to the digital world was the ability to know what you're doing and whether what you're doing is having an impact. So, for example, if you print up flyers and you leave them around and your business increases, maybe it's the flyer, but maybe it's something else. On the other hand, your website, you can understand how many visitors you got, whether there's an increasing trend or a decreasing trend. You can get a sense if you've got any volume, if you've been able to develop that volume. What are the most popular parts of your website, which may indicate what are your most popular services or products. You can understand if you send out an email campaign, what the response rate is and who are the people that are most likely to respond. And you can segment and target things specifically to those types of audiences. So that's the fun part about the digital side of marketing. And really, digital marketing is marketing. There's really no separation, especially in this day and age. And, when we talk about COVID-19, it's been very clear that it is an essential piece of a marketing plan. It's just probably one of the most important channels that you can have, because what are we learning? We're learning that social distancing isn't so temporary. We thought, oh, we'll be done with this in about 6 weeks. Not actually. In fact, we may be based on trends. I'm seeing even in New Jersey, trends are going up, and they've got like task force looking at what they're going to do in different counties because the case rate is going up. And so we can only anticipate that hospitalizations will go up, and hopefully we become better at treating it, but it's no great shakes. And let's see what happens in 20 years after the long-term, sequelae happen. But as a result of all of this, businesses are kind of redefining what they do and how they do it. So the most obvious example of this would be your restaurants who've had to pivot, and in order to have a life, particularly at a certain point, if they did not do takeout, they weren't doing. And now, in fact, takeout still remains an incredible component. Well, ordering online supports takeout. Ordering online supports cashless delivery, touch-free, contact-free. So again, that pivoting and deciding how we're going to do things differently, understanding that the customer is at the center of things. And so the safety and the comfort of the customer could be the differentiator between being successful and not. So what happens with a restaurant that truly is cashless and touchless versus the one that makes you come inside and wait in line 6 feet apart? Well, I'd rather the one that, just brings it to me and I don't have to worry about being in contact with other people. Online presence is critical. And online interactions are obviously much more important. So you can have, a medical appointment online, which, before was just kind of languishing. Telemedicine has always been there. It's really been there for people that are remotely located to certain specialties. If you're living in certain parts of the country, certain medical specialties just weren't available to you. So oftentimes your initial consult was telemed. Well, now, as you can see, they're making it easy for everybody to do that because doctors don't want to have a waiting room full of people. That's a problem. Online customer service and the ability to resolve conflicts online, critical. And then, of course, if you're selling product that can be sold online shopping, then e-commerce becomes very important. Even the most simple e-commerce can be very important. So what is digital marketing? I've probably kind of explained it to you in many words, but it's simply leveraging the tools of the internet to get your message to your target audience. And then you artfully can bring people from the top of the funnel where they are only just vaguely aware of you, perhaps down to the bottom of the funnel where they become your customers. And we'll talk about that funnel that I'm referring to in a minute. But the components are your website, your social media, your advertising, your email. Now, there are all kinds of electronic tools that interface with all of this that will make things even more wonderful. You can automate your email. You could have email campaigns that deliver based on what people click on when they get your email. Your advertising can be automated to a certain extent where, you know, your bidding is controlled through algorithms. Your social media can be automated in that you lay out what it is you want to be delivered to what platform, and you could do that all in one day, and that could be delivered over the course of a month. And your website can be personalized so that depending on who clicks on your website, it may, you know, change what they see. So all of this is around, again, we talked about, you know, being centered around the customer. Digital marketing is where it is at for that type of thing. So this funnel that I talked about, this is something that if you were suffering through a marketing class at any time, you probably saw something like this. This is the selling funny funnel. Funny, it's a funny funnel. The customer journey. So think about it from the point of view of at the top of the funnel, you have your entire universe of potential customers. They could be anybody, people walking down the street. They don't even know you at the very top of the funnel, but there comes a point when, because of some of the activities that you might undertake, they become aware of you. The people who are aware of you, that is your potential market. And that doesn't mean that it is your final market, but it's just your potential. But then what you've got to do is attract their interest, because maybe they're aware of you, but they weren't really interested in the service that you have. But something that you have said or done, maybe something that somebody else said or did, has got them interested in what it is you might have to offer. These are potential, they call them suspects. These are people that we suppose could potentially be somebody that falls into the next category down, which is somebody who could develop an absolute desire for what it is you have. So if they are in a desire mode, they are true prospects. All right. These are the people who may shop around. These are the people that are doing the research. These are the people who, you know, you get to the point of wanting to take action. And once they've taken action, if they've taken that action on behalf of your offering, then they are your customers. So a lot of the activities that we engage in are around moving people from the top of that funnel to the bottom of the funnel. And you'll find in marketing, there are things that are more appropriate at the very top of the funnel and other things that are more appropriate at the bottom of the funnel. So if you're buying, if you're selling a car and you run into a person on the street who says, yes, they know what a Mercedes is, and you go, great, buy this. That's a call to action. That's a very direct ask. At the top of the funnel, it's probably going to fail. They're aware of you, but they didn't say they were interested. They didn't say they were shopping. They haven't really done any assessment of Mercedes versus anything else. On the other hand, if they're really down to the bottom of desire and they know what a Mercedes is and they've looked around and, you know, they're like, oh, yeah. And you walk up to them and say, look, I got a deal for you, buy this. That's going to fall on a much more receptive audience. So hopefully you understand the difference between, you know, those people at the top of the funnel who are just vaguely aware of you and those at the bottom of the funnel that are ready to take action, and maybe the different kinds of things that you might do at different points in time on that journey. From a customer's perspective, they're taking this all in at different points on their journey. From our perspective, we may be doing all the different types of things at once, but we're targeting them to different parts of the audience that we know to be out there. All of this is, you know, talk about, you know, digital marketing and fundamental stuff. This is a fundamental thing. Once you've got your strategy together and you understand how you're going to differentiate yourself and what your messages are and all of that, you know, groundwork that it takes to understand whether you really have an opportunity, there's a tactical plan. And this is really the backbone. It's kind of a format. It's a backbone of successful marketing. What you'll see is across the top by month and down the side, you've got a whole set of different channels, tools, activities. And you can basically say, what am I going to do in what month? So think of this as your roadmap for the year for your business. And so what are we going to be doing on the website? So we may start a website at a certain point in time. We may do an upgrade. We may be changing topics. We may be doing something on the front page. All of this happens throughout the year, perhaps to correspond with, a strategic initiative. So if it's the fourth quarter and it's about holiday sales, then probably sometime in late September, there needs to be an update in your website so that it reflects that for the next 3 months. So the tools, I've pulled out all the traditional tools such as your website, your email, and within social media, Facebook, Instagram, Google Ads, you could have LinkedIn, anything. And of course, this works for not only digital, but for your non-digital approaches as well. So if you're going to show up at trade shows, if you're going to be doing any events, if you're going to be hosting events in your store, also your traditional media, whether it's flyers, postcards, or mailers, you lay it out and you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what the activity is. And as business owners, really important to understand what the level of workload is here too, because you're not going to want to under-resource this if you believe this is going to work for you. Some of this is not 5-minute type of work. Now, underpinning that, or as a result of what you plan to do, you have a budget. Same format, but you can actually assign a dollar value to it. You could also assign a time value to this if you were talking about, staff in your office, if you have, other people. And this will give you a sense of, am I over-resourced, under-resourced? Do I need to outsource? Is this a skill set I have within my organization? So I wanted to give you that perspective, because when we start to talk about the pieces, you sometimes get disconnected to, well, where does all this go? Why does all this work? Point is, they all work together, and you can use them in concert with each other to bring your message to your target audience. So now we're going to talk about websites. And it seems odd in this day and age to have a discussion about, well, why would you ever do a website? Sometimes people say, well, I do social media. I don't need a website. Great. There are risks there. I think we'll talk about that at some point. But the core reason to have a website is really, it's the one place that communicates your story in the way that you want it done. The only place where you really fully describe you and your services in a way that people can easily consume them. You get the opportunity to talk about how you solve your customers' problems. You can help to educate your customers, whether it is just on a page about your services or even through a blog that you might have. You can have your website make appointments for you. You can have your website sell products for you. And of course, you could even do chat bots where you automate responses to questions so that people can get their questions asked, and there's this feeling of engagement. I mean, chat bots are kind of interesting because they are automated, unless you're going to have somebody sitting there doing live chat. So you never want to pretend that chat bot is anything but a bot, but that can be very helpful to you. So when you're thinking about your website, you have a few things that you need to consider, including who your audience is, what their expectations are, how your competitors are managing their websites, what do they look like, what are they doing on their website? And the most important thing is, what's the most important thing that you want a visitor to do when they come to your website? So when you think of your website, you don't think about, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to tell them? You really need to be thinking about it from their point of view. Remember, we're customer centered. What is it that they want to know? And given what you think they're there for, what do they need to know? And then think about why they're coming there. I mean, all of this kind of informs, it kind of helps you to triangulate on what your content needs to be. And make sure that you have a good understanding of what their pain point is. So you have a customer that has been moved to do something, it's easier to not do something than to do something. So if they come there, they're coming there for a reason, which is usually some kind of disconnect or pain point. Make sure that you're addressing that. So as we said, you need to be thinking about how this website supports your business. And understand what kind of attributes based on the previous discussion around what your customer wants and needs to know. What are all the components that you want in your website? And this is going to really be important to structuring your website and understanding, the best approach forward if you're starting from scratch or if you really are needing to revise what you have. And oftentimes, it's not uncommon to revise your website because it's a living thing and you're working with a real market whose expectations change over time. Not only that, things can look stale very quickly. So refreshes and changes in appearance and reorganizations based on what we know about our customer are all par for the course. It's not set the website and don't touch it for 5 years. That's a mistake. But ultimately, once you've understood what attributes you need to incorporate into your website, you need to make a decision. Is this something that I am going to try to build myself? Or is this something that I am going to outsource? So we always call that a make versus buy decision. Do we make the widget or do we just go someplace that makes them really cheap, buy them, and then resell them with our packaging? But here it is, do you go for some kind of, thing that's marketed as being easy to do? Or do you outsource it because even the easy to do stuff maybe isn't all that easy? So there are lots of considerations there. When you think about your website, as you start to create or even assess the one you have, you need to be thinking about some performance attributes. And these metrics are critical. First of all, it's the amount of traffic or site visits. So you will get data from Google Analytics, or if you've got some other type of analytics tool, but Google is really the prime one. How many people have come to your site? How many unique visitors do you have? Sometimes you have a lot of traffic, but they're not necessarily unique, different visitors. But you need to understand that, and that may be attributed to what your site is. If you're doing e-learning, for example, you may have multiple visits by the same person. So another thing is the number of pages that are looked at per session. That can tell you some things. The session is a visit. So if I come to the website and I page through and then eventually I leave, that's the session. The bounce rate, that's when I get to the website and go, gee, I didn't expect to see this. I think I'm in the wrong place, and I leave within seconds. There's something called a click-through rate, which you can measure click-through rate in various places. Let's say you have a link on your social media that goes to your website. You might be able to measure that. But more importantly, let's say that you have a menu on your website. How often do people click through to go to your services page? Or how often do they click through to go to your e-commerce section? And then conversions. So depending on the type of business you're in, you'll have different types of conversions. If you're an engineering firm, a conversion might be that a person downloaded a white paper about a certain service that you offer. That tells you they have taken an action and they're interested in something. It allows you to segment. And of course, if they're downloading stuff and you're not getting anything for it, you'd better quickly demand, put something in there that demands that they give you an email address so that you can say, okay, I have a person who downloaded XYZ and I know they're interested. Let me send them an email about XYZ. So sometimes we miss that opportunity. The ultimate conversion, though, is if you're on an e-commerce site like Amazon, like I was there looking for my filter for my air cleaner. The conversion was that I clicked on buy now and they now have money from me. So that is an exchange of money for a product. Again, in my business, I do digital marketing. That doesn't happen because my conversion might be that you filled out a contact us form. So a conversion is an action. And conversions can be valued. Some conversions express more interest in the product than others. But ultimately, the ultimate conversion is the exchange of funds for a service or a product. So when we think about those attributes, let's talk about what's typical, because this is important when you're thinking about how you're laying out your information. A good visit time. People might think, oh, somebody's just going to come and visit my website. The visit is less than 3 minutes. It could be 2 minutes. This is average. Now, the reason why it's average, hey, if you are doing e-learning and you're hosting things on your website, that could be a very long dwell time. On the other hand, If somebody's just checking to get your phone number so that they can call you, that's a very short visit. So you've got to think about what's going on and how your site's being used. But on average, you're not going to expect a long visit. And the reason why this is important is because it has something to do with the extent of content you put on your page. If you're expecting that somebody is going to read something that looks like the the Encyclopedia Britannica, then sadly we are mistaken. So the bottom line is to consider the attention span of the average person and to think about what else is competing for that time. 2 pages per session. Realistically, they're not going to go through your website from start to finish. So we tend to think about it, it's bookended. The first page is the home page, and you learn about the business. And the last page is the contact us page. And in between, everybody reads everything. No, they navigate through, and that's what that navigation is for. So navigation and the ability to quickly get to where I want to go is really important. And if I have to jump through too many hoops to find what I'm looking for. So I might get to a website and I go, okay, I know this is the right topic. Now, how do I find exactly what I'm looking for? If I have to click, 3 or 4 times, 3 times should be the max, quite frankly, because otherwise you're going to lose them. It becomes, this trek through your website. Now, so we talked a little bit about all of those considerations in terms of how a person visits your site. The thing about your website is that you want your website to be found, and that's the ultimate goal. This is something that you kind of earn over time. We'll talk about why that is, but the fact of the matter is websites don't get a lot of traffic just because they've been launched. So you can launch a website tomorrow, and I've had situations where they go, well, I'm not really happy with it, but maybe we should just launch it. I'm like, well, you can launch it and you can always make changes to it, because it's not like when you launch it, 50,000 people are going to come to the site. The people that come to your site on the day after launch are your mom, your dad, your cousins, and other people that work with you, because it's not indexed by Google yet. So search engines like Google have to index a site. They have to crawl it so that they know what's on it, and there's certain activities that you want to undertake to make that happen. So now they know what's on it. What you've got to do is optimize your site so that perhaps your content is among the first content shown to anybody who requests information like what you provide. Now, in terms of visibility, there are 2 things that you can do. Search engine optimization, which I'm going to talk about, also known as SEO. The other visibility aspect is if you just do advertising. So if you do Google advertising, you're going to be, if you have the right budget and you bid properly, you will be on the first page, but you will be an ad on the first page. And also understand that once you stop advertising, you will not be on the first page. There's nothing fundamental about advertising that helps your website in terms of its credibility, other than the fact that you're spending money. So those are 2 ways that you get on the first page. If you say, okay, what's my fastest route to the top of the page? Having a budget and doing a Google ad. But once you stop advertising, you're gone. SEO, on the other hand, is a series of activities that we'll talk about that are ongoing, that should help you earn your way to more visibility. Let's just put it that way. Before I go there, though, I want to talk about social media, because in a way, all of this is linked. And your website and your social media should be closely affiliated. Obviously, social media is a huge tool when it comes to your online presence. And remember, I said at the very beginning, hey, some people think, well, I'm on social media, I don't need a website. And to a certain extent, you can get away with that. There are, as I said, some challenges, which we'll talk about, but you should have a presence on social media, whether you are selling to other businesses or whether you are selling directly to consumers. So we think of it as B2B, so business to business marketing, or B2C, business to customer. Your prospects are using it to validate what they might have heard about your business. Just doing a little research, possibly, just to see what's going on. And they can even use social media as a search engine. And some social media, we talk about these big ones, like you can see the Facebook logo, but there's even things like Nextdoor and stuff like that. And people are constantly going, who's a good plumber? But I even see that on Facebook and local groups. Who's a good plumber? I need a contractor. I need my deck redone. And they're basically crowdsourcing information. They use their friends or connections as a search engine. And so having a presence is a good thing. Now, the other thing is that people are more heavily reliant on social media now than ever before because of the pandemic. So where people used to just walk across the street and talk to their neighbor, they're posting stuff. Where people used to see other people and vent there, they're venting their complaints on social media. And also because some people, they could not work and they were bored. I mean, they just basically spent their time on social media. And so you saw the rise of TikTok and other stuff that, previous to the pandemic was, the purview of the 13-year-old. But now you see businesses using it. So you're going to expect changes in usage patterns. So I have some data which I'll share with you, because here's the thing. How do you decide which platforms to use? This is one of the biggest questions that I get asked. And a lot of that is really dependent on where you think your target audience is. And so this is something that you can almost Google. You'll see a copy of it when you get the slides, just the demographics of the different online platforms. And by the percentage of adults that have ever used the platform, the split between male and female, ethnicity, age, income, education, and where they reside. All of this information is known. Well, when I say known, they do data dumps or data assessment at different points in time. The latest one that we have is before the pandemic. So what we do know overall is that the total number of people using social media has increased. We don't know about a lot definitively on the changes in demographics, although, the thing that I told you about TikTok is true. And we could just see that. So think about where you want to be. Now, you may think, if I'm B2B, I must be on LinkedIn and Facebook has no relevance to me. I don't believe that is the case. I believe that you can be B2B and be on Facebook. There are different ways of being on social media. In many of these platforms have business platforms. And what you would do is this is not your personal profile that we're talking about, where you're following things that you're interested in, people that you're interested in, and engaging with your family. You have an alternative approach, which is to have a formal business page, which has benefits because it enables data tracking, it enables you to do advertising, etc. So point being that don't discard the non-business type of platform because you think you're not going to reach people there, because people are on Facebook intensely, of all types. And so what they see and what you might be sharing is really an opportunity. So when you think about Facebook or any other thing, and most of my experience, quite frankly, is that people that are small businesses are very interested in Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, less so the others. Although I have run into somebody recently who's interested in Pinterest. But generally speaking, when you look at volumes, if you want to cover volume, if you cover Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, you've got it covered in a sense. The trend, if you looked at that data closely, was that there were probably more younger people on Instagram, but many people have both Instagram and LinkedIn. And because they are owned by the same company, if you post on Instagram, it can be shared on LinkedIn as well. So you're basically doing one thing and cutting across two platforms. So you might as well, especially because LinkedIn really has a lion's share of social media eyes. So thinking about this, for social media, think about what you're trying to accomplish and understand that your customers are on social media doing other things. So you are, in a sense, in a town square, and you are perhaps talking about things that they have interested in, but maybe they're not in active mode. So you want to leverage the strengths of the platforms. All of these platforms have their strengths. Some are very, very visual. Some are very, very video. So obviously, if you're going to use YouTube, you got to have video. They've got live capability so that you can go live and, you may have people liking what you do, but you can save that. You can put it in your stories. They've got reels. There are all of these capabilities that these platforms are adding on, and they have kind of almost little different demographics for each of them. But anything that is video seems to be very attractive to people, and it will get a lot more eyes. Now, one thing that is really important about doing marketing on Facebook or any social media platform is that you want to share information more so than promote yourself. Because remember that they're not there. Your visitors, your customers aren't there to hear, the 90-minute presentation on digital marketing. They're there because they're doing other stuff. And because they might have an interest in digital marketing, getting a tidbit here or there, that's a good thing. But they're not up for the hard sell, at least not all the time. So you want to limit the amount of time that you're really talking about your services and what you do, and having the call to action to contact you right away and all of that type of stuff that is very advertising lingo. Think about the percentages that I'm showing you here. It could be 70-30, which is kind of more the best practice, but 60-40, 60% of the time, you should be sharing information. If you're a lawyer and you do divorce, you might share an article about, the state of divorce in the state of New Jersey, or you might share an article about how to make sure that you got all your financial documents in order, or you might have a tip sheet that you can download. And by the way, somebody would give you their email that talks about how to handle an impending separation or something like that. And then 40% of the time you might be saying, this is what I specialize in. If you have a need for this, contact me. So you see there's a difference. You're sharing and you're establishing yourself as an expert in a particular area, as a credible expert, without being a pain. So you can ask questions, you can do polls. You just basically want to focus on increasing people's engagement with you. And what you're doing on your social media should kind of reflect what you're doing in other parts of your business, whether you're having an email campaign or whether you're doing something special on your website. This is all part and parcel of that calendar that I showed you, the tactical plan. So that's absolutely important. Now, we're going to talk about metrics, and that's because, again, you got some level of metrics on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm going to talk about this because you just need to understand why this has value to you. First off, you may have heard that if you post something on your page, your business page, that very few people will see it. And that is true. Just on general principle, there's something called organic reach. Organic reach means that if I post something, how many people have actually seen it? And if we get to the point where, basically, the algorithm that Facebook uses is something that does not favor business posting. On the other hand, they want businesses there, but what they want really is advertising. So when you have your business page, what you've got is you've got a platform that allows you to do that advertising. You cannot advertise unless you have a business page. You can't advertise from your personal profile, and you will not see this level of data from a personal profile. This will tell you, and this is, for example, for the last 7 days, I collected this information. 10 people came to my actual page. 3 people liked the page over this period of time. I had a post that reached 21 people. 1 person engaged with the post. And so here's the thing. You can change that engagement by doing things like boosting posts or advertising a little bit. And it's much more affordable to do that type of thing in a social media environment, and particularly Facebook, than it is when I say advertising on Google. It's a whole different level of thing. But by boosting posts, you have the ability to potentially target, the type of audience that you want to reach. And that targeting is key because it gets it in front of the people that you want to know about your business. So the advantages of social media are that it is going to establish your expertise through sharing. Remember that 60-40 or 70-30. It brings yet another road into your business. You can even establish communities. So if you find that you are attracting a large number of people, you could have, groups, and you could moderate groups, and groups are a great tool because anything you post in a group is seen by the entire group. Engagement is really the goal here. People to click on something, people to like something, people to share, people to click through to your website, and you can metric all of that. There has been a proliferation of new tools because it's almost as if one platform comes out with something that's very popular, or a platform starts to just pop, then the other platforms say, well, what is it that's going on? And I probably need that feature too. So you see Instagram Reels. What's that? That's like TikTok. You see Facebook Live. Now there's Instagram Live. And of course, we talked about groups. LinkedIn is also doing live. LinkedIn is doing a number of things. They tend to be a little bit laggard when it comes to this type of thing. And they may have, LinkedIn will have more limitations. They're not going to let people doing multi-level marketing do LinkedIn Live. LinkedIn is, as you know, a bit more formal and staid. It's a formal business environment. The content that you put there should be business oriented, should reflect the type of audience that resides on LinkedIn. And you have great opportunities for targeting if you're going to do advertising, because you can target by interests and activities, with a few exceptions. And particularly on Facebook, if you are advertising for jobs, if you have a job opening, if you are selling real estate, or you're doing anything that has to do with loans or financial services, your ability to target is somewhat limited because of concerns around people who were using the targeting to exclude certain groups from the ads. So to have a job and only want to target a certain ethnicity and a certain age would be inappropriate. So they've removed that type of thing. Same thing with real estate and financial. But beyond that, your targeting opportunities are wonderful. There are some limitations to social media because I'm not sure that we think about it in these terms, but we don't own our social media properties. We don't pay a fee to Facebook to have a profile. We don't pay a fee to LinkedIn. You may pay an upgrade fee to do certain things, but beyond that, it is their platform and they are prone to change. I cannot tell you the amount of screaming and hollering that is going on even right now on my Facebook page, because not my page, but my feed. I'm a member of certain groups, and there are format changes going on in Facebook, for example, that are driving people absolutely crazy. People who manage multiple company profiles and things like that. The other thing is that you don't make the rules. You have to adhere to their rules. You can be kicked off if you violate the rules. And obviously there's been a lot on the media recently about people violating different rules and making certain statements. You have to adhere to that. Otherwise you can just create your own Facebook, as they say. There is the addition of new features, and keeping on top of them can be a challenge. And so you need to choose what you can do. So I told you about all these things like reels and things like that. Now, the challenges when they do that also, they're not always functioning perfectly. So you always want to try these things out before you start to. If you're going to do a live or you're going to do some kind of event, you want to make sure that you do a dry run before you expose your potential customers to it. And then the thing that I told you about, organic reach, can be limited. The number of people who see your posts just on a normal circumstances is limited because each of these platforms has an algorithm. The algorithm is focused on showing people what they're interested in and not what you're interested in having them see. So just because they're a friend of yours, just because they liked your page, they may have clicked on something 2 years ago, it does not mean that they're seeing everything you do. So sometimes I've had people be upset and say, I have all these friends and they never comment. They never, I'm like, well, they may never have even seen this. I mean, if you're a chiropractor and they don't have back pain and they're not doing anything that indicates that they're interested in the service, then, you got to go to the people that have an interest. How do you do that? You start to do a little bit of advertising and you find people with a profile that might likely be interested in your services. So that's where paid promotion extends your reach significantly. You have to do that strategically. So there's a trick where some people always keep a little something boosted because they're out there and that has the broader reach. And when somebody sees something and they interact with it, they may come back to your core page and say, oh, look at all this other stuff that they have. And let me check them out on their website. So that's how you kind of hook people in, and you interplay between paid and organic, and then your social media leading to your website where certain actions can take place. So now we talked about the two big pieces that everybody always thinks about, your website, your social media as part of your whole introduction to digital marketing and what are those fundamental tools. SEO is an activity. This is the process of getting traffic from free, organic types of results on search engines. So when I talk about search engines, I'm talking about things like Google, Bing, or Yahoo. But of course, any website that you go to, large website where you can search for something, is a search engine. YouTube, which is part of the Google network, Facebook, LinkedIn, of course, and even Amazon. So each of those have different things that you can do to optimize, but ultimately, let's just focus right now on the basics of Google, because Google is really, 90% of searches in the US. And if you're optimized for Google, you're probably optimized for a lot more. Why do we do SEO? Well, I use this example, and I hope that you can see this, but I just typed in professional digital marketing. It's kind of a poor keyword, but it's a keyword that is general. And what you get is Google has an algorithm that has returned 1.6 trillion results. And they did that in less than a second. So now think about your business and some general category that it may fall into. Don't type, contractor near me, but you type just a generic term, you can come up with a very, very large group of things. Look at the structure of this result. The first 4 items on the page are ads. Remember I told you that's the way to get to the top of the page? However, to get there, they got a budget that is probably a couple of $1,000s a month for this particular term. All right. Once they stop paying, they will not be on the top of the page. So you look at it, it's Kellogg, which is Northwestern University, Cornell, Yale, and the Digital Marketing Institute. When you buy one of these courses, or you do this online certification, this could be like a $20,000 course. So for them to spend the kind of money that they spend makes a lot of sense because they'll make it back. Okay, here's the first organic result. Organic result is not a paid result. It's not an ad. It's returned as a result of activity. And so the idea is we all strive to be this first result. High competition for this term. So there are a series of activities that we undergo to try to increase the likelihood that you're at least going to show up on the first page. And then you're also going to be thinking about your terms in terms of, what are the terms that I really can rank for? Because maybe I can't rank for that big thing, but there's enough other people searching for something that's more specific that might really get me business. So from an SEO standpoint, we're thinking about what a search engine wants, whatever any of those ones that I listed on the previous page. They want to make their customers happy. So they want to provide accurate results and the best results. So what does that mean? That means that they're going to show results that have the latest information, that it's well organized, that are validated because other people visit the site, that it's validated because maybe it's being discussed or referred to in social media, that it is being kept current. And so that tells you a little bit of something about a website that could be 5 years old, that you haven't touched in 5 years, and that you kind of forgot you have. Well, it's not a surprise that it's not on the first page for any term that you're thinking about. And then we have to think about keywords. A keyword is a search term that is used to find your website. So remember I had professional digital marketing, they would consider that a keyword, but it's any term that would be used to find your website. It's used by people who are your prospects, the ones that are looking for your services. So you want to be thinking in terms of the language they use, not technical language that you may use internally or within your field. Although that's acceptable, just understand that you got to broaden your understanding. Some keywords are more difficult to reach for ranking for. So, competition for those top 10 positions that are on the first page, the results, it's very hard to do that. But keyword research will help you understand what terms are being used to search for your particular business. So you can, I think at the time when I was originally thinking about this presentation, it was hot. So air conditioners, that's one thing. Air conditioners is a generic topic. But if I write best air conditioners, that means, well, what are the best engine? I'm probably shopping around, right? Air conditioners near Paterson, New Jersey means I'm getting ready to go make a purchase. So you can understand that there's different kinds of terms out there. And as you move down these bullets, there's greater intent to purchase. So you just can look at that and you can do research to understand what terms are being used to find your page currently. And then you can even triangulate on, well, what do I want to be found for? There are tools that you can use to investigate this, and you will get these links, but some of these tools are free. Some of these tools are paid. The first tool up here is a free tool straight from Google. So if you have a Google account, you can go to the Google Keyword Planner. The Google Keyword Planner is actually in the Google Ad tool because keywords are used not only for the SEO purposes, but they're used for advertising purposes. There's another tool that has a free version, which is SEMrush, SEMrush. I use a paid version, but I'm a professional digital marketer, so I need more detail. But these all can be used to find out more about your website, to identify potential keywords that you might want to identify to be ranked for. You can also look at Google Trend, which is a free tool. Anything that Google has, generally speaking, is free. You just have to know that it's there. So you have direct links to those. So there's many other tools out there with free and paid versions, but the closer you stay to Google is the closer you stay to fact, because Google is such a high percentage of traditional search engine searches. Bing is less so, or it's not Bing anymore. I think it's Microsoft Edge. I don't even know what it is. It's something that we just don't really focus on all that much. You only go to these other places like Yahoo when you have really maxed out what you're going to do on the main search engine. So when you think about selecting a keyword, think about your relevance. How relevant is the term to your business? Think about volume. How many searches are done for the keyword? So more searches means more competition. So 1.6 trillion results. It's hard for my little business in Wayne, New Jersey to rank at the top for that. On the other hand, if you go for like really low volume search terms, you could rank #1, but if nobody's searching for it, it doesn't matter. So there is this trade-off. The other piece is authority, which is how authoritative are you as a source. So if you are in competition with a highly authoritative search for a particular term, you're probably going to lose. So if you are a doctor's office trying to search for a particular, trying to rank for a given medical term versus the National Institutes of Health or the CDC, CDC and NIH are going to rank higher than you. So generally speaking, that's probably not a recommended approach. So you have to understand who you're competing with. When we talk about SEO, there are two different kinds: on page, which is here, and off page, which is here. So what's on page? On page are things that happen really more. It says on the page, but it's really the back end of your website. It's how your website is structured, because Google depends on how things are structured. It doesn't matter what it looks like on the front of the page. It matters what it looks like on the back of the page to Google. So in my profession, I see many beautiful websites where the traffic is low, and when you look, essentially it has not been optimized on the back end. So it's beautiful, but you say you don't see any headers, and the owner of the website says, but here's a title. It looks like it says, I sell widgets. Like, no, not that header, not the one that a customer reads. It's the one that Google reads. The other piece that can happen is that Google does not recognize images. So you might have a beautiful website with lovely images, and that's 90% of the website. First of all, it's not enough text for Google to do anything with. Remember, it likes content that is proven, that is rich, that is updated. If you don't have enough words, that's a problem. But ultimately, if you've got images, Google doesn't read the images. It's looking for something in the back end that describes what that image is. So that is very important. Having what they call alt text here, alternative text. So I am not going to go through each one of these, but the understanding that you need to have is that there are these activities on the back end that need to be done and need to be monitored to make sure nothing happens to them. And that's the technical part of the back end SEO. Now, anything that you do off the page also can impact your ranking as a page, because anything off the page creates links back to your page because you're going to refer to your page. Whether it is something that you're doing on social media, you're blogging and you take your blog and you put it on social media, but it links back to your thing. If you're posting on some kind of public forum and you say, I know a lot about this, blah, 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 and here's who I am, and there's a link back. So there are all these things that you do that bring traffic to your website. And again, that traffic is an indicator of interest and of authority. And it becomes, it raises the visibility to the algorithm that your site is performing well. The other thing that's important is mobile. I think everybody knows that people use mobile phones to search. I think about 4 years ago, they said, be careful, Google is going to want everything to be mobile ready. Mobile ready means that your website is such that anything that you can do on a desktop, you can also do on your phone. This means that buttons have to be large enough to be clicked, things have to be large enough to be read. And so oftentimes what people were doing to optimize for mobile and the format of a phone was they were doing a website and they were putting all the content stuck in the middle of the page like a bowling alley. And you'll still see that today. Well, really the way it's supposed to work is that your site is supposed to adjust itself based on the screen that it's being seen by, whether it is a laptop, whether it is a monitor, whether it is an iPad or a phone, it should appear well, and it should be functional in all of those environments. Well, now it's not that Google just wants you to do it. Basically, they're penalizing any site that cannot do that. And so they call it mobile first indexing. So on that 1.2 trillion results that we saw, you would be penalized if your site wasn't mobile ready, and you would definitely not be on the first page. And we know that more than 60% of searches today are done by a mobile device. And so very important. Load speed is very important on mobile as well, because it becomes a little bit, it's more challenging. But understand that after 2 seconds, almost 10% of your visitors will leave your site. And after 4 seconds, 20% leave, and so on and so on. It just goes up exponentially. People don't have a lot of patience. So remember, they're only on your page for a couple of minutes. Don't fritter away half of that by having them watch the site load. So this is just a caveat. The other thing that we know about mobile that I don't have included here is that if your audience is predominantly male, they are even more likely to use a mobile device to do online searching. Now, a part of SEO is content marketing. And keywords mean that you have to have content that includes those keywords. And if you don't have content that includes those keywords and it's not configured, as we talked about in the back end, Google doesn't know that you have anything that is of interest. So the strategy behind selection and inclusion of those keywords is what content marketing is all about. So the content that you have is going to help you get found. It's going to help your customers learn about you. It's going to help your website basically do all the stuff that we said that your website can do for you. And it's also the basis of your social media and your SEO. It's driven by your business objectives. So you could have essentially a content calendar, and we'll probably have an example of that coming up. But the point being, think about what you're going to talk about, your topics. You can bucket them. You can say, I want to have about 5 or 6 different kinds of topics that I talk about. You've also set your tone. So are you going to be authoritative, or are you going to be much more informal? So if you are a salon, do you need to sound like your law office? No. So, but you may want to sound a certain way. Think about who your audience is and what they are accustomed to or what they aspire to. You also want to understand when you're going to talk about it. So even down to time of day, time of week, time of month, time of year, all of that could be very important. And then you decide with your content where you're going to put it. Your content goes various places: website, your email, your social media, all of that. So back to that whole calendar thing that I just love, as we move away from, what kind of activity you're going to engage in. So that early calendar that I showed said, oh, we're going to have an email campaign, or we're going to have a newsletter in August. Well, now in the content calendar, you're talking about, well, what is the content of that newsletter? And then, you may have a newsletter, you may have blog, you might have stuff that you're doing on LinkedIn, writing a LinkedIn article. There may be other activities that are going on around whatever that initiative is that you're doing. So this is all about getting your ducks in order and getting organized so that you can make this happen. And sometimes this level of organization, when you are, a little overwhelmed about all the stuff you need to do, just having this together says, okay, let me just go back and look at the list. Okay, I can do this one little thing. I can just write this one little email, or I can do this one newsletter article, and it's ready to go. So you don't have to, you can make it, you just want to reduce the barrier. So not only do you not have to think about what to do because it's already been decided, you just get the pen out, essentially. So incorporating social media and SEO, what are your basic steps here? The first is you want to take and make sure that you have social media incorporated into your website. You should have a link to social media on every page of your website, and you should enable your website to be shared. You can also add widgets that allow real feeds from your social media onto your website. So a Twitter widget if you tweet, or an Instagram feed so that people can see your latest posts. And if they see the latest post, maybe they want to go there and look more, maybe they come back, but you're basically creating opportunity and flow. You want to build links with your social channels. So social media links are actually considered higher value links because they have high web authority. In other words, web authority, the number of people that visit, how well thought of they are. So if you have a link to something that's not well thought of, and the worst case scenario would be like a porn site, that's not well regarded. You don't want that. You want, if you're a doctor, you want the NIH to link to you. You don't want a vitamin supplement company to link to you. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like a little bit, you're going for as much authority as you get. There's this whole concept called expertise, authority, and trust in SEO and within Google. And expertise is, do you have the right kind of people talking about the stuff that you sell? Do they have authority? In other words, is it the NIH? And trust, are you certified by the Better Business Bureau? All that kind of stuff is really important. So here is about the quality of links. You want to make sure that you're posting content and encouraging sharing. So that's what social media can do for you in terms of this. You want to try to grow your follower base. So social media pages with a lot of high quality followers actually can rank better in searches, because if somebody does a search for your business, they're not only going to see your website, but they could also see your social media pages, a link to the page. So you want to post fresh and relevant content, and you want to encourage interaction. Again, you can retweet, you can do reviews, you can like and comment, and other people will be doing the same with you. And then you want to make sure that your content is shareable. So your accounts should be public. So sometimes people will post things and you like it and you notice there's no share button. It's because they either only posted it to a limited number of people, or their account itself is not public. It's only viewable by their friends, and you just do not have the ability to share it beyond that. Make sure that you're using, if they have the option, business social media accounts rather than your personal profile. So on Facebook, for example, it is a violation of the terms of service to run your business from a personal profile. You can post things about your business on your personal profile, but you cannot primarily use your personal profile as the way that you run your business, if you know what I mean. So just be very careful of that, because if it's a violation of the terms of service, they can close down your account. Again, there's the focus on the fresh and relevant content. And if there is something that I can urge you to do more than anything else, and that is to make sure that you have claimed your Google My Business listing. So you may already have one. You may not have one and not know what this is, but you need a Gmail account and you create a listing. You go to business.google.com. What you may find is that your business is there, and you might even have reviews, and you may know about this, but when you look at your listing and you see the option to claim this listing, that means it hasn't been claimed. So you need to click on that and complete all of the activity. There's a lot involved in terms of making sure that your business is valid, and they will actually validate your business by sending a postcard to your location, and then it will have a PIN number, and that PIN number is something that you go back into your account and you enter it, and then it will be considered a validated business. So if you are focused on local marketing, this becomes very important. It's important for all local businesses. But even if you are not focused on local marketing, it can still be a way to make sure that you're found in Google listings. There are challenges. What's a challenge? A challenge would be somebody like me. I do not have a brick and mortar office. Well, I do, but it is not a separate office. I work from my home, so I don't need an office. So I don't necessarily want my street address. However, Google wants your street address. And so there's this kind of tension. The way around this, let's say that you're a plumber and you don't have a brick or mortar office, but you have a truck and you service Essex County. You have the ability to designate service areas so that you can rank in your service area. So you can do that if you're a lawyer, you can do that for other businesses. Just understand that, you know, it is always going to be slightly different. Everything that you read about pulling together your Google My Business listing is very much focused on, you know, that physical office, and that, you know, maybe you have the donut shop. Well, we don't all work that way. Many of us have services, and particularly in this day and age, there is no need for that brick and mortar presence. And so I think Google is fast adjusting to that. Right now, it is that we would focus on service area. So again, business.google.com, there is no charge for this. And the thing about this listing is that this enables you to conduct or collect good Google reviews. It helps you to get into the map section of Google. If you have ever Googled yourself and you can see that you're coming up in the 3 or 4 items at the top of the page associated with a map, they'll call that the map pack. And actually, if you expand it, you'll see far more businesses, but they've all completed this process. If you don't claim your listing, people can still add reviews, but it's still open to somebody claiming it, and you don't really want that. So now we're going to move on. We talked about SEO and social media and how they all link together, and, you know, some 5 steps that you can take to really link those two together and help you enhance that traffic and enhance visitation to your website, get more eyes on your business. And remember that I told you there were 2 ways to move in this direction. You can do SEO and earn your way to the top, which we recommend that everybody does that. But in addition, you may at times want to do paid advertising. Just understand that Once you stop advertising, your ads go away. And there's not much of a lasting impact on anything else that you've done once your ads stop. So you are able to pay to reach your target audience, and you can do both Google ads and you can do social media ads. We're going to talk about Google ads. This is an ad. It's, when you think about ad, wow, where's the picture, whatever, but this is the way the Google ad works. Now, there are different pathways. You can do an ad to your website. In other words, the ad goes from the ad, you click on it and it goes directly to your website. You can do an ad where you click on it and goes directly to your landing page, or you can do an ad that basically is click to call. Where they go is really important. Make sure that whatever you're talking about in the ad, whatever that click is, they're able to do it easily. And think about that one thing that the ad wants them to do. And the reason why is because if we see this ad for Montville, #1 dental, accepting new patients, services you can trust. Let's say they click on it and they go to a page that is a blog about the right kind of toothbrush to use. That's a problem. There's a disconnect between what is being offered in the ad and where that person lands. And we never want to see that. Google will score that ad lower because it's irrelevant, and Google will not show it as much, despite the fact that you're trying to pay them to do it. Why? Because again, Google's trying to make people happy. And if people are looking for a certain thing, they're not going to show them something else, because if you show them something else, they'll leave. This is an example of a landing page, dedicated and focused. So the ad was for real estate property. They land on a page that talks only about find your next property. All right, this is just a mock-up, but it's as simple as that. And what you'll notice is that generally speaking, you can't really go anyplace else. So this is not an opportunity if you're doing an ad because you're doing an ad because you want somebody to buy something from you or to make a decision. This is not the time to give them other information, because the person that clicked on the ad had already made the decision. When they come here and you start saying, but what about ducks, geese, and lions? That is a distraction. So keep them focused. So a landing page, usually you can't navigate any place else. It might even not even be on your website. It doesn't need to be, because there are special places where you can actually subscribe to landing pages that are really designed to convert people. But you can put something like this on your website. It would be a page that you cannot navigate to. And then when somebody comes here, they're probably not going to be able to navigate to the rest of the website. But this page has a very distinct purpose. Now, the thing about these ads, and we're going to move through this rather quickly, is that really, I'm going to just speed through this stuff. Basically, you set an objective, and based on the objective, it's going to give you options for the kind of ad campaign. So here it's like, okay, what do you want to do? Sales, leads? You want to generate traffic to your website? You want to just do branding? Most of the people that we interface with want sales or leads. Sales if you're e-commerce, leads if you're doing service. Now, there are different campaign types, and the campaign types for sales and leads, which are the most commonly selected ones, are basically the same. You can, and Google automates this for you to a certain extent. You can choose all of these different kinds of campaigns, and there's, campaigns that are pay-per-click types of campaigns. There's shopping ads where you just show a picture of the shoe that you're selling in your shop at the top of the page. There's video ads. There's display ads, which show up on other networks beside Google. But your campaign types, what you select is going to drive you to these kinds of campaign types, and you select a campaign type. And so you can either bring people to your website, or you can do kind of branding activity. Most people want to bring people to the website. Now, I'm just showing you this to get a sense of, there are data that you get when you do an ad. It can tell you how many impressions, how many people saw your ad. This is impressions. How many people interacted with your ad? What's that rate of interaction? What's the average cost of that interaction? So, and how many people converted? How many people did what you wanted them to do? Notice that that number is far smaller, but depending on the business, it may be well worth it to you to spend that kind of money. right? Point being, remember I talked about metrics and data? This is giving you that information. You can also do social media advertising in the same way, but it's actually got a little bit broader targeting capability, and you can target based on interests and their behaviors on social media in addition to geography. But of course, you need to have a business account in order to do it. So these are examples of what an ad looks like. It looks very much like other stuff in the feed. I know people who they can't tell that they're looking at an ad. Part of the reason why they can't tell is that they're not looking at this small thing here that says sponsored. But another reason why they can't tell is because oftentimes, because of the targeting, they're already interested in the content that is showing up in the ad. So this is really important because it tells you the kind of information that you can put, and it shows you the strength of social media marketing because maybe, I'm a lawyer and I particularly like a particular, I don't know what it is. I'm interested in a certain type of service, and I've seen other stuff, and I'm going to see your stuff because I've been targeted because of the nature of my career. So it doesn't feel out of place is the main thing. So when you do online advertising, you can think in terms of different types of ads for different types of things. So remember, at the top of the funnel, a person's not shopping, and at the bottom of the funnel, they're making decisions. So if you think about pay-per-click ads, search ads are, that ad that I showed you for, at the top of the page, those are ads that are probably more appropriate for bottom of the funnel because the person is actually searching for what you have. On the other hand, a display ad may just be a branding ad. Display is ads that show up on different parts of the Google universe. They could show up on YouTube. They could show up on other web pages that people go to that have advertising. That's really more of an awareness thing because, again, it's kind of out of context with where they are, but it shows up. Then there's these things called remarketing ads. These are the stalker ads. So remember, you clicked on something and then suddenly everywhere you go, you see an ad for that same thing. I know that it's creepy, and it's too bad it's not Halloween because then I would have all the, Halloween sounds. It is creepy, but it is very effective because remember, they already indicated interest by taking an action, and it's easier not to act at all. Your social media ads probably are more at the top of the funnel, more because they're not searching. Remember, they're scrolling, they're interested in other things, and they may have an interest in what you have. And remember that whole subtle, I don't always recognize that it's an ad because it's something that I'm actually interested in. And they know that I'm interested in it, and it's showing it to me in my feed. So different ads for different points in the funnel. And so we already talked about this. I'm not going to belabor this, but the point being, for pay-per-click advertising, PPC is what you might hear. The user is searching for your services. They've entered a search term that you think is relevant to your business. You're bidding on it and are given the opportunity to show up at the top of the page. Sometimes at the top, sometimes at the bottom, hopefully all on the first page. So again, this is where you show up for pay-per-click. This is where you want to be, at the top. The display, again, not searching for your service, as we highlighted. So you'll see these little banner ads and things like that. Remarketing ads, we already talked about. They're stalking you wherever you go. You clicked on Mr. Rooter, and now he's showing up when you go to Forbes. Social media ads, think of them like a billboard in the right neighborhood. It's the right neighborhood, you might get more people who stop. Now, budget is important here. This is not a set it and forget it type of activity, neither for neither Facebook or social media ads or Google ads. They need to be managed. There's a whole strategy around bidding. There's a strategy around optimization. You may do A/B testing where you're testing two different ads and understanding the response rates to those ads, and then determining which ad you're going to put your money behind more or whatever modifications you're going to make. This is something that takes time, it takes monitoring, and it takes knowledge. So while they offer you DIY options, think seriously about whether you want to do it and understand that you are going to have to learn a lot and you are going to have to spend some time on it. I want to talk about email marketing also. email marketing, we tend to give short shrift, and we're doing it here again. Part of the reason is, people, it's funny. It's like the sleeping giant. There is data that shows that for every dollar invested in email marketing, there's a $38 return. And I keep seeing it. I almost find it unbelievable. But my main takeaway when I talk about email marketing is that it is absolutely a low cost method, and probably something that shouldn't be missed if you're going to have a multi-channel approach to your customers. It's an opportunity to influence your prospects. So all these difficult kinds of campaigns are out there. You can just send a monthly email, do a newsletter. You can put a video in an email. You can do a drip campaign where somebody signs up for something. You can send them a piece of information every week for a period of time. You can have campaigns that adjust based on what a person does, whether they click on a certain component of the campaign. And so basically, you want to focus on collecting your emails and making a database here. You need to use tools that are intended for email. This is not something that you want to do out of your own personal email. I know somebody personally who has been blacklisted because she used her personal email to do major acknowledgments for a webinar that was done for an organization. And now all of her emails are going into junk mail. This is happening in my inbox and in many other people's inbox. So she's had to change your email. You also don't want to buy an email list. When you buy an email list, what you're doing is you are potentially, you're breaking the, how would you put it? You're breaking the rule, which is essentially saying you can only email to people who agree to email to you. So while you can buy a list, and I think there might be a question about buying lists, you're going to have to ask people individually whether they will opt into your emails. Generally speaking, you have to grow your list by either offering something that can be of interest to your target audience and using that to grow your list. You can meet people in networking. You can say to them, I'd like to add you to my email list. But then once you start to email people by using a tool, you're satisfying some requirements. Trackability of the email, and then secondly, the ability to unsubscribe from the email. And once somebody unsubscribes from your email, you cannot email them again. Otherwise, you can be fined. So you don't purchase email lists is the best practice. This is an example of an email automation. So you can automate an email series so that you can create a flow and initiate a campaign that delivers automatically once you set it up. So while a campaign may take over a period of weeks, you have set it up once, and all you're doing during that period of time is monitoring. So you can look at this in more detail when you get the slide. Lots of different metrics associated with emails. You can pretty much understand them based on what we're talking about. But I think a theme here is that when you do the digital marketing, you have the capability to track what you're doing. And that has a lot of value to you, because if you get that information and you use that information, you have the ability to strengthen your ongoing marketing activities. So I know that we are running out of time. Here's what we covered today. We talked about things that you need to consider when you're looking at your website, and the key performance metrics that go with your website, and how that might drive how you deploy your website and what you put on it. We talked about the benefits of social media and how to select platforms based on demographics and where your customer is. We talked about how paid advertising works, and on both the search engines as well as social media. And we talked very quickly about email and marketing automation. And generally speaking, all of these are different touch points. And the whole idea is that we need to maintain contact with clients using a lot of different touch points. And that's what drives people from the top of that funnel down to the bottom of the funnel. So with that, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I just want to see whether we have any questions. We are going to email this shortly. We have a copy for you to have. And the links are there. They may not be live, so you might just have to, replicate them. But the links to the tools are there as well.
I know we had a question from, I think it was Juan. He asked about email marketing or marketing campaigns. Where can I get B2B databases?
And that's where I talked about the fact that you can, well, first of all, you can just Google lists, mailing lists online, and you will get a number. There's nothing that I truly recommend, but I will tell you that if you purchase emails and you use them, you run the risk of being a spammer. So that is not something that you want to do. So that's why buying an email list in particular is not considered to be a good thing. You could buy a list and do snail mail, just regular conventional mail. Um, that has very low open rates, but you can do that. Can you buy address and contact B2B databases? I'm kind of confused about that question. So we talked about the fact that you can buy a list. I mean, you can buy practically anything. You can buy a list that will have emails associated with it. Just understand that by buying a list, that does not give you permission to email a person. And also, if you're going to do this email, you need to do the email from an official email provider like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or Constant Contact. That is what gives you that unsubscribe. If you just use your regular email, your personal email, you're not going to meet that requirement. Or even your business email if it's not giving you the unsubscribe capability.
Yeah, you said list correct without email. Yes, Cecilia said you can buy it with a physical address and contact businesses, but if you're buying a list with an email, it's almost like you're sending unsolicited mail.
Mm-hmm.
You could be flagged as a spammer.
And the other thing is there's also no guarantee about the accuracy. So a lot of times people have to clean those lists. Just even look at the list when you get the database. It's old fashioned. Look at the data and say which one of these things is not like the others. And then, you might be removing records because of that. But, those things are always a little dodgy. Yeah. You can do a direct mail campaign, but look at just clean the data.
You're welcome, Carlos. We saw your comment.
Thank you.
We do ask that you please complete, there should be an evaluation form at the end of this webinar when we close out. Or if not, if you receive the email asking you to take a minute or two of your time to complete the evaluation, that will be very helpful to us. We're actually right in the middle of planning our 2021 events for the SBDC here. And so your feedback for each webinar that you take is valuable to us now, so we know which webinars to keep for 2021 and which ones that we need to replace. Do we have any other questions before we close? Yes, like I said at the beginning of the presentation, the slides that you saw today on this presentation, along with the recording of it, will be emailed out. It does take some time, so it will be sent out within 48 to 72 hours. It's close to the weekend, so hopefully I can send that out tomorrow, but I'll do it as soon as possible. Do we have any other additional questions?
I think everybody's ready to start the weekend.
and for most of you that attended today's session, especially if you're in Essex County, you do get to follow up with Cecilia for a one-on-one. So if you needed further assistance, you're trying to implement a marketing campaign, or you're trying to put something together, you can take advantage of the one-on-one consulting that the SBDC offers. and you'll be able to speak at length with Cecilia or one of our other consultants. We will be reaching out to some of you, especially if you're within our jurisdiction. If you're not, though, we do still have additional webinars and programs. I know if you attend one of our paid workshops, it doesn't matter where in the state you are, you do get additional one-on-one consultation. So I know we have a webinar coming up on the 20th of this month called Designing the Perfect Digital Marketing Campaign. It has been discounted due to COVID, so I think it's just $50. It'll be well worth your investment. That workshop actually covers a lot of what Cecilia mentioned in this webinar. It will actually go through putting a campaign together for your business. You should come away with a strategic plan. Darda, yes, I will email you the link to that workshop that will be held on the 20th. Not a problem.
Okay.
Okay, in the middle of my session, I'm getting someone calling me on my Google phone. Okay, so if there's no further questions, I would like to say thank you to Cecilia for giving us another informative session here today. I'm just doing a last scan. Do remember that we will be reaching out, or you can simply contact us. Cecilia has our information on the screen. You can send us an email or give us a call if you want to take advantage of our one-on-one consultations in regards to digital marketing or any business-related queries that you may have. We can assist you with that. You simply visit our website, www.rnsbdc.com, and request the counseling, or just send us an email. Please do take a few minutes of your time to complete our evaluation. It will be beneficial to us. And if there's no further question, I will be ending today's webinar. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. You have a great weekend too, and thanks for your help.